We are continuing on with our study from A Word to the Little Flock, but we're moving to some of Ellen White's early visions. And the focus of these visions really was to bring hope to the remnant of God's people who had followed in faith and prayer on October 22, 1844, and had a disappointment. So we're coming to the first article written by Ellen White in A Word to the Little Flock on pages 11 and 12, and this was written from Topsham, Maine in April 21, 1847, and it's written to Brother Eli Curtis in New York City. And remember that there were the Curtis's home and the White home often had prayer meetings together for several years after 1844. So I'm going to start reading. Dear Brother, in the Day Dawn, Volume 1, Numbers 10 and 11, you kindly invite me to address you a communication. The only apology I have to offer for not writing before this is I have not had a clear duty to write until now. You will, I doubt not, excuse me for addressing you so publicly at this time. I have been much interested in your writings in the Dawn and Extra, and fully agree with you on some points, but on others we widely differ. Your Extra is now on the stand before me, and I beg leave to state to you and the scattered flock of God what I have seen in vision relative to these things on which you have written. I fully agree with you that there will be two literal resurrections 1,000 years apart. I also agree with you that the new heavens and the new earth, Revelation 21, verse 1, Isaiah 65, verse 17, and 2 Peter 3, 13, will not appear till after the wicked dead are raised and destroyed at the end of the 1,000 years. I saw that Satan was loosed out of his prison at the end of 1,000 years, just at the time the wicked dead were raised, and that Satan deceived them by making them believe that they could take the holy city from the saints. The wicked all marched up around the camp of the saints, with Satan at their head. And when they were ready to make an effort to take the city, the Almighty breathed from his high throne on the city a breath of devouring fire, which came down on them and burnt them up, root and branch. This is all from Revelation, the book of Revelation. And I saw that as Christ is the vine, and the children and his children the branches, so Satan is the root, and his children are the branches. And at the final destruction of Gog and Magog, the whole wicked host will be burnt up, root and branch, and cease to exist. Then will appear the new heaven and the new earth. Then will the saints build houses and plant vineyards. I saw that all the righteous dead were raised by the voice of God at the first resurrection, and all that were raised at the second resurrection were burnt up and ceased to exist. So there's two teachings here. One is about the voice of God, which we've already read what James White said on a study about the voice of God. And the other is about that we don't have an eternal hell where people are burning forever and ever in misery because of persistently staying in sin and being lost. Instead, they cease to exist. So that's 2 points that are being brought out there. So the next paragraph. You think that those who worship before the saints' feet, Revelation 3, verse 9, will at last be saved. Here I must differ with you, for God shew me that this class were professed Adventists who had fallen away and crucified to themselves the Son of God afresh, and put him to an open shame. and in the hour of temptation, which is yet to come, to show out everyone's true character, they will know that they are forever lost, and overwhelmed with anguish of spirit, they will bow at the saints' feet. So, we have a teaching here about the hour of temptation, and which is found in Revelation, and also about character work and the revealing of character through the trial that comes upon people in the last days and with the time of Jacob's trouble. You also think that Michael stood up and the time of trouble commenced in the spring of 1844. The Lord has shown me in vision that Jesus rose up and shut the door and entered the Holy of Holies in the 7th month, 1844. But Michael's standing up, Daniel 12, verse 1, to deliver his people is in the future. This will not take place until Jesus has finished his priestly office in the heavenly sanctuary and lays off his priestly attire and puts on his most kingly robes and crown to ride forth on the cloudy chariot to thresh the heathen in anger and deliver his people. Then Jesus will have the sharp sickle in his hand, Revelation 14, verse 14, and then the saints will cry day and night to Jesus on the cloud to thrust in his sharp sickle and reap. Now, the teachings about Jesus on the cloud and the sharp sickle and the sickle angels is all found in the 1850 chart. Then Jesus will have the sharp sickle in his hand, Revelation 14, verse 14, and the saints will cry day and night to Jesus on the cloud to thrust in his sharp sickle and reap. This will be the time of Jacob's trouble, Jeremiah 30, verses 5 through 8, out of which the saints will be delivered by the voice of God. So once again, we have the teaching to compare what she saw in vision versus what James White was saying about the voice of God. I believe the sanctuary to be cleansed at the end of the 2300 days is the New Jerusalem temple, of which Christ is a minister. The Lord shewed me in vision more than 1 year ago that Brother Crozier had the true light on the cleansing of the sanctuary, etc., and that it was his will, that means God's will, that Brother Crozier should write out the view which he gave us in the Day Star Extra, February 7, 1846. I feel fully authorized by the Lord to recommend that extra to every saint. I pray that these lines will prove a blessing to you and all the dear children who may read them. So when we're thinking about disappointment and coming to hope, we once again have some quotes from Ellen White about things she saw in vision, about the sanctuary, the voice of God, and the hour of temptation. So those are things for us to continue to study about, as well as the hope of what she saw in heaven, what the reward is in heaven with Jesus.